And we are live with Rewind to Raw, 5 minutes after the show wrapped up. I am John Pollock alongside Mr. Wai Ting, who is back yet again. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John. Yeah, full week of doing these with almost no time between the end of the show and the start of this. And I think we're getting into a routine.
How did it work out for you tonight after? This is the first time we have gone this early for Raw.
Raw is actually a lot easier than Dynamite.
Everything's easier than Dynamite. It's still a bit of a mad scramble for me in the last half hour, I would say.
Yeah. Raw, I mean, is a lot more predictable. You know, there's certainly a whole lot more filler that you can skip through on the show. So it's. I mean, it really.
Did you not watch the Alpha Academy Snickers commercial?
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
One of the few things that I guess was worth watching, I suppose.
Well, we welcome everybody that is joining us live, here for Rewind to Raw. We are going to be going through the entire show. Busy week here at the site. We have lots coming your way, including 3 bonus shows for Post Wrestling Cafe members beginning Tuesday night with Rewind Away, as we are going back to review ROH Super Card of Honor 2017, headlined by the Hardys and the Young Bucks for the ROH tag titles in a ladder match. We've got Christopher Daniels and Dalton Castle, Cody and Jay Lethal in a Texas bull rope match, and 3,500 fans in attendance, including John Pollock, Wai Ting, and Muhammad King Mo Lawal.
Yes, we were all there. Yeah, in person. Only 5 years ago.
Maybe the only no, this would not be the case, but 3 people that were at Super Card of Honor, and then in the media box the next night at WrestleMania, which Muhammad Lawal also made his way to.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did go to WrestleMania as well.
Okay, interesting tidbit.
Yeah, this was the famous WrestleMania where I did not have a desk to work at.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All that and more coming up Tuesday night. And then Thursday for patrons, MCU Later is back. You guys said see you later after the last Marvel series. Well, you're back. And what are you priming us for on Thursday?
It'll be me and WH Park giving all of you a primer on Moon Knight. It's about to start on Disney Plus next week. So I'm really excited for that. I don't know much about Moon Knight, so I'm going to rely on WH to educate me as well as the audience as well. So MCU Later returns this week.
Okay. And of course, for patrons, you also get live access to Rewind to SmackDown on Friday nights, and we'll be live right after Dynamite as well. 10:05 Eastern. Can you believe it? 10:05, Wai.
You know what? Why not like
10:04?
5 minutes before
There's
the
no
show
way.
ends?
I can't go any earlier for Dynamite. I need every second of those 5 minutes.
Okay. All right.
So there you go. The whole schedule is up on the site. We will go through other shows, including this weekend's later on. I do want to also make mention of the passing of Pepper Martin, who was a very well-known wrestler, but someone who had really created a whole second career for himself in acting. He got involved in professional wrestling. He was actually from Hamilton, and after he had left the Navy with a knee injury, he ended up in Hamilton working out of Al Spittle's gym, and that's how he got into professional wrestling. He was someone that went to so many different territories, including San Francisco for Roy Shire, had a big run in Oregon under Don Owen, where he won multiple versions of the tag titles and the Northwest Heavyweight Championship between 64 and 66. But then he moved over into acting and had several like big roles. Like you can look at his filmography. He was in like quite a lot of stuff, including the role of Rocky, the truck driver in Superman 2, who got into a fight scene with Christopher Reeve, of course, Superman. And that was other roles he had included the original Walking Tall, which was remade decades later with Dwayne Johnson. Also in the original edition of The Longest Yard with Burt Reynolds. That was also remade with lots of wrestlers in 2005. So there's a brief story up there. I definitely encourage people as well to check out Greg Oliver's work at Slam Wrestling. He's written numerous stories on Pepper Martin throughout the years and has an obit on him as well. And WrestleMania week continuing to grow. If you go up to the site at postwrestling.com/mania, we're keeping track of all the shows, all of the match listings. Tonight we got the addition of Jay Lethal and Lee Moriarty for Supercard of Honor. And Spring Break, the first part of Spring Break on the Thursday night, March 31st, we'll see Alley Catch versus Mickie James. So the match announcements continue to come fast and furious as we get set for WrestleMania week next week. And then it's all over with, Way.
I mean, until the next week, right? There's always something going on. But, I mean, the Supercard of Honor edition is interesting because, I mean, we have our first AEW wrestlers that are being added, I suppose, other than, FTR. So, yeah, interesting.
So you can find all of that up on the site. And anything else you want to mention before we get into Raw?
Yeah, just Braden, our friend Braden, of course, is hosting a WrestleMania party for the second night of WrestleMania. This time, it's happening at Sneaky D's, the famed Toronto hangout. Sneaky D's on the second floor. So if you guys want a place to watch WrestleMania next Sunday evening, just go to twitter.com/upnextpodcast and you'll find pinned to the top. It should be pinned to the top, at least, the ticket information for Braden's watch along.
Yes, get your tickets in advance. It was a hot ticket for Revolution. We're going to see if WrestleMania outdraws Revolution in Toronto.
We shall see. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into Raw. The second to last edition of the show before WrestleMania. The plight of Seth Rollins continuing to be our thread throughout the show. Will Seth Rollins get his WrestleMania moment? That is the question that looms large on Raw. And the show begins, and Steve Austin's music hits. And this crowd in Chicago loses their mind. There are very few times that I'm like smiling, laughing, watching. And this crowd, dude, there was a woman jumping up and down. They were so excited that, oh my God, unadvertised, Steve Austin is here. And out comes Stone Cold Owens. Kevin Owens, and this was just remarkable. This was already the highlight of the show. Just him walking out in this Steve Austin costume. He has got, he's bald. He's got the jeans on, the knee braces, one of which was desperately trying to come off. What did you think about Halloween here in March?
Oh, fantastic. I actually think he looks better bald. I mean, it was a bald cap, everybody, so, I don't think
he was
he's
not
keeping
actually
the look,
bald. If he had shaved his head bald before WrestleMania, I mean, that would have been the stip, right?
Well, what would Austin put up?
He'd have to grow his hair back out. He'd have
I don't
to
know
be,
if that's
nope.
I don't know if that's possible for him.
He'd have to put up the Broken Skull sessions.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I mean, fantastic. Of course, we all remember when Shawn Michaels showed up in Montreal, and did something similar with Brett's music before Brett actually made a return, and that was wonderful as well. So this was great.
He comes out, and the place is just they're legitimately angry because they were dangled with a Steve Austin appearance. So it was like quite the scene here. And Owens is just in his element here. He's doing the what's to the crowd. He says how everything that he said about Texas is true, and makes fun of Austin, stating the lights are on, no one's home. The whole crowd is chanting, "We want Austin." They played the theme a second time. And again, they all go nuts. This was amazing. Just go back and watch this crowd and how excited they were. There were some parents that were grabbing their children at the chance of a glimpse of the Pope, Steve Austin, coming down this ramp. And the second time he hooked them again. And Owens just laughs, and they're even more upset. I was like, this is one of the better laid out segments in some time.
Yeah. I mean, the glass shattering sort of has that effect. I mean, that's why it's such a brilliant entrance sound. And
I thought the second one, it was that was really clever. Whoever thought of let's do it a second time. Because the second time you believe, okay, he's actually here.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah. I also thought Owens' Austin style promo was actually really good. He got all the little things down. I mean, probably did this plenty of times among friends or just at his home as a child. And I haven't even heard this style of Austin promo in what feels like 20 years. So even just nostalgically, I really got a kick out of this.
Did you see the video they put out last week where it's Owens doing his rendition of the Austin 316 speech, and they're going back and forth from the original to Owens' like reenacted version?
I haven't seen it. No.
I couldn't believe this did not make it onto television.
Oh wow.
It was just online last week, and it's just taking the Austin 316 speech, and then Owens is like in a studio giving his own version of it, and they're going over top of one another. It was great. Really good stuff. So hopefully that sees a larger audience. So he makes fun of the fans. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you are fools, he calls this audience. And he calls for some beers, and he can't catch them, and the crowd is booing this. So he berates the guy throwing them, brings the guy into the ring. Of course, it's the Austin beer, and he stuns the dude and pours beer all over him. He goes to drink the beer, but he stops and just chucks the can up the stage. This was a great segment. I thought Kevin Owens was fantastic here. This was like legitimate anger from this crowd that was just taken for a ride on two separate occasions. A great start to the show. And I said today, this is a show where you have to get really clever when you're building up some of these Raw programs where like half of the program is not around. And I can't say that was 100% on this show, but for this one, I just thought this was a great segment.
It was a lot of fun, and really specifically targeted to people like you and I who really do remember that Steve Austin run in his prime. I thought it was great. I thought Owens here, I think it probably was just incredibly fun for him to just go out there and do a Steve Austin impression. Like, again, he probably did this millions of times at home, except now he's doing it for an audience on Raw, and he's about to do a segment at WrestleMania with the actual Steve Austin. So I'm sure for him, it's just such a trip. I do wonder, like, how much of this crowd was even alive when Austin last had a run and wrestled and cut promos. Like a good chunk of this crowd, I think, only knows of him through video packages, maybe video games. But of course, Chicago, you're talking about a very vocal, I think, older audience as well.
Well, I mean, this crowd went nuts. I would say even for your audience that was not watching 19 years ago, I mean, they have so put, like, Austin is on the highest of pedestals in terms of every time there's a Legends Night and he's brought back or he's showing on the network. Like, he is positioned as like the living legend of this company that I would say even those that were not watching during the Austin era are aware of how big of a figure this person is in the company's history. Like, it's like he comes back, he overshadows everyone. So I don't think that's even the case of like you're missing your younger audience that didn't live through it. But compare it to when you were watching during the 90s. It's not like Bruno Sammartino was like positioned as like this, this holy figure in the company's history. He did not exist at all. He was not brought up. He was not on good terms with the company. You would not even know Bruno Sammartino if you just watched the programming. It's very different when you're talking about this generation and how they really lionized that Attitude Era period. And you can go back to this stuff for better or worse. That's what this show is being sold around this year. So Kevin Patrick is backstage with Seth Rollins, and you can hear the Cody chants. They were pretty loud throughout the show when Rollins got involved, and he just laughs at Kevin Patrick's question about what his role will be at WrestleMania. It's stealing his microphone. What would happen? Ray and Dominic versus Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode. The Miz is out for commentary, and they're beating down on Dominic. Rollins comes out midway through the match and says he wants a WrestleMania spot, and he's got the microphone, and he goes to deliver his message, but the microphone keeps cutting out, and they go to commercial break, so he cannot deliver his message. I want to know, what was the message going to be here?
Well, he was going to call out AJ, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, he could have. I thought maybe he was going to try and go after like Dominic's spot at WrestleMania.
Maybe that'll be next week.
Maybe he's going to shoot for that. Make it a 6-man. Add Braun Breaker to one side and add Seth to the other.
Well, he's going to have to get creative.
Yeah. So they have the heat on Ray. makes the tag. Dominic hits his very loose cutter onto Ziggler, and then turns around, spinebuster by Rude, and then Dominic stops a glorious DDT, 619 frog splash, and he pins Robert Roode.
Yeah. I mean, Rude can take the losses. I'm just glad it wasn't the NXT champion and Dolph Ziggler. But yeah, Dominic, I think is really good. Crowd was into it. And then we go to the post-show angle.
Ziggler super kicks Dominic as Miz attacks Ray and hits a skull-crushing finale on the floor and then tears off Ray's mask. And Dominic goes to cover Ray with a towel, and Miz walks up the stage holding the mask, which he is going to deliver to Logan Paul. So they're going all out for this angle, the unmasking of Ray.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm pretty sure they've done this before, but I mean, much of this audience probably hasn't seen this sort of angle before. And, Graves was doing a big push to explain the significance of the mask and why it's so incredibly disrespectful to a luchador. So they're, raising the stakes. And I think seeing Logan Paul next week in a Rey Mysterio mask is going to, I think, work on many levels. It'll work, to try to catch Logan Paul's audience, and for the WWE, getting a celebrity to wear one of the wrestlers' masks, I'm sure, is something that they're interested in as well.
The timing of this angle was something else, where they decided let's tease seeing Ray's face on a day where Chris Jericho put an unmasked Ray on his Instagram today.
Oh, he did.
He did. So
what was the context?
He was just showing when they were, this was from the mid 90s when they were in Japan, and they just took a photo of all of them. And Ray was obviously not protecting the identity all that much. This was before the unmasking. It's sure, take a photo.
I mean, I suppose on the internet, it's not that difficult to find. I mean, Ray himself put the photo up, actually. It's not even Jericho.
I mean, the guy was on national television for 2 years unmasked, and it's not exactly the most hidden face out there.
Yeah, Rey Mysterio put this up himself, actually.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's even better. So Ziggler, afterwards, Rollins storms to the back, and he's with Pearce and DeVille, and he wants the biggest spotlight possible at WrestleMania. They explain, we gave you a chance to beat Owens last week. You failed. And Pearce says, maybe there's something we can do. So I want to know what Pearce's idea was here, because later, they interrupt the AJ segment. Was that what Pearce already had in mind?
That I'm not really sure.
Maybe Rollins should have just waited and been patient, and he would have got booked. Maybe Pearce had an idea.
Yeah, that I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what Pearce had.
The Miz is on his phone with Maurice, holding the mask, and he tells Kevin Patrick that Logan Paul was a big Rey Mysterio fan. He was his hero, but the Mysterios are jerks, and he's going to give this to Logan Paul, and he dares Logan Paul to wear this mask on Raw next week in Pittsburgh. I dare you.
I think he'll take it.
I think
he'll do it.
I think he will too. Next week, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns will be on the show in Pittsburgh. They did not have a term to describe what kind of interaction they're going to have. Maybe they're going to have a stern crossing. Maybe it
won't be a collision.
They've used up the collision. An altercation could occur.
Okay.
Yes.
Reaction.
A fracas.
You can always use that. Yeah. Fracas.
Heated exchange.
They could. Yeah.
So that's next Monday. It seems like they are really treating Monday as your real go-home show, because SmackDown, it's the night before. You've got the Hall of Fame. I think Friday is, by that point, it's going to be more of a kind of just standard, here's your card, and here are some matches.
That's all the show should be. Here's the card.
That is what a lot of the shows are. Omos versus Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz. Boy, Apollo Crews and Commander Aziz. These two were just left for dead here. Graves was explaining that there's no way Omos can beat two men. There's just no way. And he grabs both by the throat, uppercuts Aziz on the floor, and after he gets posted, they get into the ring. The bell rings to start the match, and Aziz gets slammed down. He catches Cruz, tosses him off the shoulders, big boot to Aziz, and a tree slam to Cruz, and he stacks both men. This was our WrestleMania finish last year. A minute 48, Omos just destroys these two. Destroys them.
He does, yeah. But it looks like they're planning something for Omos at WrestleMania, and they aren't for Aziz and Cruz, so I think this was the right thing, you know. Pretty simple storytelling, you know. They continue this fairy tale like giant build for Omos, and I think it's effective.
So Omos then gets onto the microphone. He's undefeated and unstoppable, and anyone with the balls to step up against me on Raw or WrestleMania will be dominated.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone with the balls.
Who has balls?
Well, all the men on the roster, presumably.
Okay.
So that rules out the females.
Have you heard anything?
Nothing beyond like the report that was out today, that the Fightful report that the last word was that his opponent could end up being Bobby Lashley. I guess if Lashley is in fact cleared.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay. For a segment, yeah. I mean, you know, this whole thing is being built up to somebody standing up to the bully in Omos, and it would signify a Bobby Lashley babyface turn.
Yeah, and he either is the one that steps up to Omos and beats the bully, or you continue this with Omos.
Have Omos beat a returning Bobby Lashley?
I think it's a weird match to do. I don't know. Like, you've put so much into Omos. I mean, you could beat him, but what are you building him up for? Is this it for Lashley on what will turn out to be like a week's notice?
I would assume something to keep Lashley looking strong, you know, upon return, to maybe set up a match. Maybe it's like the body slam challenge, that the Lex Luger Yokozuna thing, where maybe he just body slams him and then you get a match that way.
Or they can play up that Lashley is back, but he's still has, because the storyline is the concussion, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not 100% yet.
Right.
He's gotten around the concussion protocol. That tree slam could be devastating.
But seeing Lashley, if it is Lashley, you know, just lift this guy, I think will be really impressive.
Well, if you remember when they did that, they did like like some kind of tag match, and they tagged those two in, and like the audience was into it. Like, here are like these two unstoppable forces that they have built up on Raw, and now they cross paths, as brief as it was on that Raw months ago. Yeah, it would seem like it's one where it's just they want to make sure they have the go-ahead with Lashley. It's not like this promo really gave you any kind of direction. They could always go wherever they want with this.
Yeah.
So leaving it open-ended. AJ is out. He is back after 3 weeks since the Concerto attack, and said that having time can be a dangerous thing. He watched Edge attack him over and over and over again. He didn't want to see his kids or talk to his wife. He just wanted to be alone.
Well, he's sad.
Just watching this on YouTube? It's not even up on the network yet. I guess maybe he's got the Hulu replay.
Maybe he's on Watch Wrestling or something.
Could be. So he says that we can do it now. And he calls out Edge. Be a man. Edge was not a man. So AJ called him a coward.
He had balls? You should have asked if he had balls.
You have balls? Be a man. Quoting Randy Savage here. So he calls him a coward, and out comes Rollins. More Cody chants, and he acknowledges the chants. He says, rumors are a lot of fun, but rumors don't make moments, and I'm living for my WrestleMania moment. Whatever that means.
Rumors don't make moments, but he lives for his moment. Okay. So he's saying, like, okay, yeah, you guys, he's aware of the rumors, he's acknowledging the rumors, but they're not true, is what he's saying.
No, he's not saying they're not true. They don't make moments.
They don't make moments. Yes,
that's actually exactly what they do. I mean, these chants will lead to a moment. Yeah. They love their moments in this company way.
Oh, moments. Yeah. And I mean, you know, this delayed gratification at this point, like, they're not hiding away from it. They're giving the audience gaps to cheer Cody's name. they're doing a great job of building that anticipation.
Rollins is worried about AJ. He asks if he's physically and emotionally capable of facing Edge at WrestleMania and advises AJ to go home to his family, get to 100% after WrestleMania, and then come back. And Rollins instead will step in to face Edge and end his career. AJ declines this option. It's like, I am coming for a payoff. And Styles can see what Rollins is trying to manipulate here and that Rollins is desperate. So Styles says, I'm going to destroy Edge, something you couldn't do. And with that, Pierce and DeVille come out. And they're going to give Rollins one last chance. If you can beat AJ, you will replace him at WrestleMania. In terms of like building up a big show, these authority figures, like they're terrible promoters. They have jeopardized Austin and Owens. They are jeopardizing Edge and AJ. And the alternative is not all that intriguing. Like Edge and Rollins, like the feud we went through last year.
I think
Rollins interviewing Steve Austin. Could you imagine Seth Rollins doing that segment earlier tonight?
Oh, it would have been a mess. But I mean, maybe they're just that confident. On top of that, I think the real goal is to find a main event for these shows. So they're just really looking for anything they can because
they're trying to prop up that third hour. They know how important these TV numbers are. Who cares about this Peacock deal? That's money in the bank.
Yeah,
not the pay-per-view. The idea.
Well, they're the USA and Fox deals. That's what they're.
Maybe we know where their allegiances are.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, Styles attacks Rollins, and he's pissed off that he's got to wrestle tonight, and I guess showing he is not emotionally capable tonight, but he's still going to go through with this match.
Mm-hmm.
So AJ remarkably seems okay after those concertos.
Well, listen, it's adrenaline. It gets you through a whole lot.
It does. Carmella and Zelina are backstage, and Zelina once again accuses Carmella of not focusing on WrestleMania, and they argue about each not having the other's back. That Carmella is too concerned about her wedding and her reality show. And how is this reality show working? Are they still releasing new episodes, or are they just all out now?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I can check.
You don't have to. I don't want you to spend any time on that. Zelina then takes Carmella's phone and throws it away and calls her an ugly bridezilla. So Carmella calls her a hobbit and smacks her and her dollar store crown. And they brawl, and there's a big pull apart between your women's tag team champions. Styles then goes into DeVille and Pierce's office and says that Pierce sucks at this management position and tells DeVille, I have not heard good things about you either. And he's going to beat Rollins tonight and get his WrestleMania moment. Not revenge, not his match with Edge, his moment. He's going for his moment.
Okay, so they're on episode 5 right now, which was released. When was this released? I don't even know. So episode 5, I'm assuming today maybe?
Okay. Because I have not heard a peep about this reality series since those first 2 episodes dropped like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I haven't.
Other than what they mentioned on the show.
Yeah. Well, somebody's watching. I mean, it's got how many views here? I think it's got 160,000 views, this one. So
that came out today?
I can't even tell. Oh, no, This is 2 weeks ago.
160,000 views for a WWE video?
Yeah, this was 2 weeks ago.
That is not a high-performing WWE video.
I guess not. No.
Like, for context, the Brock destruction with the forklift on Friday was like at 2.2 million today from Friday.
Yeah, that's pretty low. Wow.
Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley against Natalya and Shayna Baszler. They got the advantage on Liv Morgan, and Carmella shows up ringside and is complaining to Corey Graves about Zelina calling her names. So Morgan's fighting out of the corner. They knock them to the floor. She's crawling to Ripley, but gets yanked off the apron by Baszler. And then Natalya hits a discus lariat, and Baszler is in with the heart attack, which was not called as such. And then Baszler pins Liv Morgan in 3 minutes and 54 seconds. Short match, and most of it was built around Liv Morgan getting to the corner to try and tag Ripley. So Queen Zelina attacks Ripley with the scepter, And then Carmella drills Natalya and Baszler on the floor, super kicking Baszler. They get into the ring, and Zelina and Carmella have a face-off. And then they laugh and they embrace.
They tricked us. They tricked everybody. They like each other. They can't get along.
So I imagine that's a lot of planning.
I mean, some hard slapping too.
Yeah, and some
but
hard insults.
It worked at the end of this. They got their attack, gained that momentum, had their music played to end the show. Successful night.
In theory, they probably could have pulled this off without that whole fight backstage. Like, you could have had Carmella just out ringside, and Zelina's out at ringside too, and they just attack them.
I think we have to look at this like they want airtime. You know, it's very much like on The Bachelor, where really like we're at the stage now where it's very obvious the contestants are doing certain things just to get airtime so they can grow their Instagram followings.
Right.
And I think that's ultimately what wrestlers in the WWE are doing as well.
Well, maybe Carmella's motivation is to get those views up for this reality series.
Sure, maybe.
Becky Lynch comes out. She is seated in the ring, and she asks the question, what does it profit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? I was just asking Way this the other day. Becky found her answer 8 months ago at SummerSlam. She said, for 15 months I was without this title. I was never beaten for it, and I would do anything to get it back, referring to the title as my precious. And this title is everything. She is power. She is glory. I am the prize at the top of the mountain. This is my world. When you all chose Bianca Belair, that's when I knew that I would sell my soul to keep this title. Belair doesn't have what it takes to beat me. You can crush my throat. I'll crush yours worse. Belair did not try to injure me, but I did try to injure you. And said that this week I was going to come after your hair, but you're not here this week. And she compares Belair's hair to her soul, and you are not willing to give it up, unlike me. So what does it profit a man to gain the world and lose their soul? You'll find out at WrestleMania, if you make it.
Yeah. Different style of promo from Becky this week.
I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it too. It was something different, you know, and I think it'll look really nice when they put it together in a video package.
Is that what this was? This was the live VO read?
Maybe.
There were some good lines in here to utilize. You know, it's just like this is a really basic kind of story that Bianca has been on this long chase back to get this belt back, and this belt is Becky's lifeblood. And if she loses this, she will spiral out of control.
Yeah.
So you built up like a big moment for Belair, like a big celebratory moment, but also on the back end is this like the backlash of Becky losing this, that you have like two stories coming out of this. They can continue the program, or Becky can just, God forbid, she then becomes like Dakota Kai. I don't want to see her go that route, but that is my thinking.
We'll see. We'll see if they carry on with Becky as a heel or a babyface after this. I mean, I imagine you'll get to see some moment of her suffering from the loss. Maybe you'll get a rematch at the Backlash.
WrestleMania Backlash.
Sorry, WrestleMania Backlash, yes.
Sarah Schreiber interviewed Austin Theory. He doesn't care if Pat McAfee's apology was sincere on Friday. He's a dumb jock who has no business stepping in the ring with me, and says that he could speak to Mr. McMahon and still get Pat McAfee fired. And regarding Finn Balor, he's running out of storage on his phone from all the selfies of Finn Balor being laid out at his hands.
He takes a lot of them. He does the thing where he just like presses a bunch of shots at once.
Yeah, he's got to go through those. Like choose the one you post, and don't be clogging up your library with those.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he probably has a big data plan.
Huge news. Veer Mahan is coming to Raw on April 4th.
Yeah.
We have a date. By the time he appears on Raw, it will be 182 days since he was drafted.
That is crazy. Wow. Like that's half a year.
It's almost like it's like close to us. We're almost at like a school year.
Okay. So the Raw after WrestleMania.
Presumably. I mean, things could always get cut that night.
True.
That would be hilarious if it just extends beyond April 4th.
Yeah.
Finn Balor and Austin Theory. We get a surprise appearance. Pat McAfee is here as the guest commentator. And the idea here was that Pat was going to mess with Austin Theory, but never put his hands on him. So Pat's getting up. He's doing crotch chops, and it leads to Balor hitting a running drop kick. They come back after the break, and he continues to distract Theory. Theory then is ramming Balor's head into the desk. Balor then does it to Theory, and Pat's just going crazy here. Balor hits the sling blade, shotgun, goes for the coup de grace but misses. Mahistral cradle, gets a 2 count for Theory, and then Pat gets onto the apron. The ATL is blocked. He hits a fisherman buster, and then Pat tries to mess with him, and it leads to Balor winning the match with an inside cradle.
Yeah, I thought a good match. These two typically have pretty good chemistry. And as far as the build goes, I mean, I think Pat McAfee is, pretty charismatic. I think the audience is really into him. And otherwise, it's your typical distraction finish to try to build heat like you got 3 other times on this show.
Yeah, I feel this one has kind of, like, it's missing something. Pat's great. By the end of this, it just seems like this program needs something. I don't know what Vince? It is. Well, I really believe, like, it's been very odd how much that, like, Vince has not even been on TV once since that interview with Pat McAfee. So it seems like there was some big change here where Vince is not even, like, we've just seen, like, the nameplate on the door, and that's been the extent of it. Like, there's been no Vince. And then after this, you've got, like, Pat celebrating here with Finn Balor. There was no Damian Priest on the show either, so they weren't really pushing that forward. So I don't know what is the full extent of this whole thing. Are you interested in the match?
Am I interested in the match? Not so much. No. I mean, I feel like at this point I kind of know what Pat McAfee can do, so I think, but not everybody watches NXT and not everybody will have seen his Adam Cole match, so I think he'll surprise a lot of people with his performance. In a stadium, things are a bit different, but I mean, is it an interesting match that, that is driving me to want to watch the show any more than I did? Not necessarily, but again, it's not a match that I think is booked for me.
RK Bro come out, and they're confronted by Alpha Academy, and Gable cuts a promo that what they did last week was retribution, which is a haunting word on this show. Says that the literacy rate is lower than the crime rate here in Chicago, and called it criminal activity when RK Bro accepted a tag title match with any team but them. And now, by making it a triple threat, you've screwed our odds up. And before the match, they did air a promo for the WWE Evil series that debuts this Thursday on Peacock with different clips of the various episodes. And I guess that will that be on the network up here in Canada? I have no idea.
It's a good question. Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, if it's on the network in Peacock, I imagine WWE would own it and they would be able to air it on
I would think so as well
internationally.
Anyway, so we will see. That debuts on Thursday. RK Bro and Alpha Academy, they had a nice match here. It was the RKO formula, the RK Bro formula, where they built up to Orton getting the hot tag, and he was going for the draping DDT, but Otis stopped him. And then Gable eventually does get hit with the draping DDT, but he comes back, released German on Orton, sending him to the floor. Went for the Chaos Theory. Riddle lands on his feet, hits a jumping knee, and the Bro Derek to pin Chad Gable. And then Otis attacks Riddle. They go for the Otis bomb, but they are stopped by the Street Profits, who double-team Gable. And the Street Profits are out here in their Chicago Bulls colors in Chicago with a sky high by Dawkins to Riddle, and Ford hits from the heavens. And I don't know what the hell happened to Orton here, because he took that German and he never came back. We never saw him again.
Right, yeah.
So I didn't see, like, if he just, he rolled out after the German and he just never got involved in any of this post-match stuff.
Must have been a rough German then. Yeah. I think, the Alpha Academy are doing a good job as, the biggest heels in this match. They're getting more and more appeal as the weeks go on. Crowds reacting to them. And, it's a tag match.
It's our multi-person build-up for WrestleMania where everyone's going to trade wins and attack one another.
Yeah.
They did a recap of Gable Stevenson's NCAA championship win and really putting him over. He is Raw's own, and Gable Stevenson has stated that he will be at WrestleMania. So in whatever capacity that is, it's going to be pretty imminent of his arrival on Raw, and he's going to be probably thrown into the deep end quick. Like like you would think, like maybe the night after Mania, you want to shoot an angle with this guy.
Yeah, maybe attach a manager with a guy,
Could be
somebody
helpful.
as a mouthpiece. Yeah.
Who would you see as being that person?
Well,
I could have really have seen them like having, there was the talk of using Kurt in the build up for that Alpha Academy thing.
I don't know if Kurt's a great talker these days. At least not with scripted promos. I think, if you're gonna push him as a babyface, are there many babyface managers? I would put him with Malcolm Bivens and throw him into Diamond Mine. What a perfect pairing.
Malcolm Bivens, that could be something.
Yeah. But anyway, that's probably not happening.
Well, what is happening is a tornado tag match with Dana Brooke and Reggie against Tamina and Akira Tozawa. So we had a segment with Tozawa and Tamina in the back, and Tamina says she wants what Tozawa wants. And she felt the same thing with him last week. And she comes up close to him and says, I want the 24/7 championship, and tells Tozawa to make it happen. So this leads to this tag match where I could not understand where it was the championship on the line here in this tag match.
I don't know. Because
the promo was all about help me get this title. And then we're going to this tag match where I didn't see if the title was even on the line here.
Maybe it is then. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Can't bother to care. They start by playing chicken with Dana and Tozawa on the different shoulders. The crowd was silent for this.
Mm-hmm.
Tozawa runs into Tamina and is hit with the handspring elbow by Dana, causing Tamina to fall out of the corner and land on Tozawa's balls, meaning that Tozawa is out of the running to face Omos.
Good for him. He's better off. Yeah.
And my favorite part of this entire feud, they show a replay of Tamina landing on the balls. So we've got the picture-in-picture, and Reggie gets the pin during the picture-in-picture. So the match ends. No one cares.
The balls spot is way more important than the pinfall.
Than the ending. And Tamina carries Tozawa to the back, and he looked in tremendous pain, as was I watching this.
Yeah. I think the most notable thing about this entire thing, number one, I thought Tamina was busting out the acting chops here in that backstage skit, for somebody who I don't think has had the best appearances on camera delivering their scripted promos. I actually thought she did pretty well with the material here with Tozawa. I think Tozawa is really funny, but this audience in Chicago was not having any of this. They did not react to any of it. They didn't want goofy comedy on their show. So it was not a successful night for the 24/7 division tonight.
You guys dangle Steve Austin, and this is what we do get. Next week on the show in Pittsburgh, Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns appear. The Street Profits versus Alpha Academy. Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Naomi, and Sasha Banks against Queen Zelina, Carmella, Natalya, and Shayna Baszler. And in a singles match, Rey Mysterio versus The Miz, presumably with Logan Paul wearing Rey's mask.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Our last Raw before Mania. And that takes us to the main event, AJ Styles versus Seth Rollins, with the match with Edge at stake. Rollins was in control for much of this. This was like a 3-segment match. There's a suicide dive by Rollins to set up the second commercial, and he's yelling at AJ that this isn't personal, but he wants AJ to go home and be with his family. And AJ gets slapped, so he fires back with his own slap as the announcers state that it's to awaken the pit bull from within. His inner pit bull is coming out.
We know Vince loves, when he sees AJ Styles, for some reason he sees that breed of dog, the pit bull.
The pit bull. AJ comes back, sliding forearm smash, Ushigoroshi for a 2 count. The Styles Clash gets stopped, and he is hit with a Falcon Arrow. And then as Rollins goes for the stomp, it's turned into a Rana. They're trading covers. AJ stops a buckle bomb and then slides out from a superplex, and Rollins comes down badly on his leg, and AJ lifts him for a torture rack into a Blue Thunder bomb for a 2 count. and then the phenomenal forearm is executed, but he is met with a super kick in midair, and this time Rollins hits the buckle bomb, goes for a frog splash, landing on the knees, and AJ recovers, and once again goes for the phenomenal forearm, but this time he is hit with a chair to the back by Edge. After 3 segments, we get the DQ, but this was a good match, and he just continues with the attack, and then the big announcement that AJ is your winner by disqualification, and Rollins loses it. Before we talk about the post-match, the match itself didn't get a finish, but you did get a pretty quality match from these two.
It was a really good match. It really was. It's such a stupid stipulation that I think everybody knew the finish of. But this crowd was really getting into it. They were getting into the near falls. They were getting into the count-out teases even of AJ Styles possibly losing it and somehow Seth Rollins entering the match with Edge as if that was like, any sort of possibility. But that's all to say that the match was that good. These two, when they let them go, they could have match of the year candidates, honestly, and not to say this was anywhere close to it. But for Raw, it was really, really good. And of course, we had to end it with a DQ finish for the sake of story.
Well, after 23 minutes, sometimes you're not going to get that clean finish. But
yeah, whatever. Ultimately, I mean, nothing. It wouldn't have.
This is about the bigger story. This was not about like delivering a finish. This is the Seth Rollins story that he is constantly.
But it also begs the question: why are we watching this show? Why are we watching the wrestling on this show? Why aren't we just watching clips?
Well, in the grand scheme of this, like, yes, in theory, like the Owens-Austin thing is the biggest thing they're building to, but you don't have Austin. And like all of these shows, like Rollins is like the main character on Raw. Mm-hmm. He is in the most segments. He's in the main event. His story is being pushed the hardest of all of these going into WrestleMania, above everything.
Yeah. Well, before Owens had the match with Austin, it was Owens telling the same story, about trying to get a match at WrestleMania.
But now he's got it. And now it's just, you're building it up. But that was like contained to the first 12 minutes of the show.
Yeah. I mean, this was all focused around Rollins. I mean, he was in the main event, and I mean, whenever the Cody match happens, that will be a featured match at WrestleMania. So this is the build to that.
So Rollins comes over, and you can hear him telling Corey Graves, "This is bullshit." And in case you didn't hear him, he gets onto the microphone to announce this is bullshit. And next week, Raw won't happen unless he gets what he wants, which is his WrestleMania moment. Mm-hmm. It's like, give him his moment. Let's have a Monday off. That'd be great.
That's what he wants, yeah.
The crowd is once again chanting Cody, and he tips over the desk. He's destroying the steps, and he's just saying, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit.
Crowd is pissed off at this point because they expected Cody to show up at this period, and they didn't. So
I mean, that's really the fans setting up their expectations. Like, for what they were, I mean, you were teased with Austin, but it's like, no one was expecting any of this tonight.
It's true, but I mean, Jacksonville, I think last week was probably the first one where people really anticipated it. But then you had the PW Insider story break this week, so I think people expected it even more this week. They're going to expect it next week too, and they're probably going to be upset when he doesn't show up either. So it's going to be like this.
So there you go. That was Raw going into WrestleMania. Yeah. What was effective on this show for WrestleMania?
It's a very good question, John.
I really like that Owens segment. Like, I'm not saying it was like, I just think the crowd, you really got an emotional response out of a crowd that you don't typically get from a WWE audience, because it's very much like we're presenting this entertainment show. And I thought like there was legitimate anger from this crowd over the Austin thing, and not like the kind of we're pissed because you booked something terrible and we hate this company. It was like, heel hatred at Kevin Owens. And I thought it was like a really fun segment that Kevin Owens was great in.
Yeah.
Like that pop for Austin is probably going to be the biggest pop of either night on the show.
I think the Cody pop is going to be pretty big too, depending on when they do it. I mean, we're talking about the Hardys versus the Young Bucks at Supercard of Honor 2017. The night after that was their debut at WrestleMania. And I think you might see something similar, if they delay this Cody reaction until the night of WrestleMania itself. I mean, there was movement on the show, John. I feel like,
Yeah.
Logan Paul eventually being set up to put on Rey Mysterio's mask, I think will be a good heat-getting thing in the go-home show for WrestleMania. They're setting up Omos having something at WrestleMania as well, possibly against Bobby Lashley. And Seth Rollins, this whole build towards Cody is all part of this tonight's episode. So I think by not mentioning it and just simply telling and showing Rollins and dangling the idea that Rollins isn't going to have an opponent at WrestleMania, they are making the audience want Cody more and more.
Yeah, I would say the only question marks for WrestleMania on Raw remain Omos, what they're doing with him, and Finn Balor and Damian Priest, where they fit in.
Right. Yeah.
And everything else seems like
kickoff, maybe.
Like if it's a singles match, that could very well end up
Doesn't
being
seem
a
like we're
kickoff
going to
show.
get the Battle Royal this year, right? Like if Omos is not going to be in it, like who else is, like why even do it?
Yeah, it's a good point. If Omos is not going to be in it, which, I mean, granted, like if Lashley, I think like that all comes down to if Lashley is ready or not, and that could always be a backup. Like they've got the bodies, like you could fill a battle royal with your Commander Aziz, your Rudes. You can find bodies, but not the most enticing battle royal of the remaining parts.
So what matches have been announced and haven't been announced thus far?
So here's the update. For night one, we have Becky and Bianca Belair, Ray and Dominic against Miz and Logan Paul, Drew McIntyre and Happy Corbin, and the Usos against Nakamura and Boogs, as well as Charlotte and Ronda, and of course you have the Kevin Owens, Steve Austin segment. Night two has Lesnar and Reigns, Edge and AJ, the Raw Tag Title Triple Threat, Pat McAfee and Austin Theory, Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn, and the Women's Fatal 4-Way for the tag titles. So 6 matches on night 2 and 5 segments plus Austin and Owens on night 1. So you would assume potentially an Omos match, Rollins and his match, something with Finn Balor, most likely.
Yeah, so that makes these shows, 7-match shows, which I think is plenty.
Especially when you have a 2-hour kickoff, which I would think, like, you probably need about 2 matches at least on those kickoffs. Like, they usually would do 3 in the 2-hour format. I would think you need at least 2.
True, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, you get a little Hall of Fame segment in there, I'm sure, as well. Maybe a talking segment I guess that's what the Kevin Owens thing is on the first day. Yeah, they'll probably add a couple more matches.
Maybe we'll get a concert.
With who?
I don't know.
Downstate. Live.
Downstate Live. Yeah. I don't know if the Weeknd would be spending his weekend in Dallas for this.
They're gonna. The man does the Super Bowl. They're gonna have to pay a bit more extra for that.
He could do like a WrestleMania medley by this point. This is what, like the 3rd year in a row that they're using him.
Sure. Yeah, there should be like a musician wing of the Hall of Fame.
Saliva would be
Saliva.
The first inductees.
Of course, Limp Bizkit.
Yep, they could go in. And then
Jim Johnston, maybe.
Your mid-2000s new metal icons that this company just devoured.
Creed, of course, you put Creed in there.
Of course, you put in Scott Stapp number 1. That would be an honorary inductee. We did not get a Hall of Fame inductee today. Usually Monday is the day they put out names. There was nothing today.
So we have 3 so far?
We have
Taker,
Sharmell, Vader, Undertaker, and I think that's it so far.
So maybe a class of 4. I mean, they could always announce 5.
I would imagine they do the Warrior Award like they do every year.
Right.
I can't see them not doing that. But nothing today. So there you go.
Okay. Let's see if we have feedback, and 2 pieces of feedback, actually. We go first to Kate from Montreal, who says, that poor crowd thought for a moment that they were getting Stone Cold and Cody. They did get an amazing segment with Owens, though, and a really good match between Seth and AJ. Insert standard, except the ending caveat. So hopefully that makes up for it. The rest of the show is definitely something that happened. But, as is often the case with Raw, it felt like a very tepid mix bookended by strong segments. Clearly, the biggest news coming out of the show is that we now know Veer arrives on April 4th. We just need them to confirm which year.
Yeah, that's true. The year is Veer. Yes. Listen, for the Austin thing, there is not one person that bought a ticket to this show thinking that Steve Austin was showing up. And Cody, that's fans building that up in their own mind. There's been nothing from the company that has misled people to assume that they would be showing up. So I don't see those as anything a fan could legitimately be upset by.
Yeah.
We go to Stank here. Last week, I came clean as a non-WWE watcher that tuned in to see if Cody would show up in Jacksonville. This week, I feel like I may need to leave my family for a while and check into a local rehab facility. I can't stop watching this god-awful product. Seth is absolutely terrible. And no, it's not because he's great at doing his job and I'm supposed to hate him. This is just such a stupid story that's bleeding into every other top Raw program for Mania. The thing is, this is the top, other than Owens and Austin, this is the top Raw program at this point, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
I thought that Cena begging Taker every week for a match and eventually sitting in the crowd until his music hit was stupid, but at least it was isolated to just their own segments. I couldn't believe they had Seth interrupt the Mysterio tag match and they never once cut back to the ring as Seth's mic was cutting out. They just let the confusion sink in and went to commercial. I wish I could tap into Cody's mind and really know what he's thinking. Sure, his Mania debut will be great as far as entrance goes, but after that match, I don't see anything out there that Cody can sink his teeth into. The title will once again be stuck between Brock and Roman for Backlash, so unless he's going to be forming some American supergroup with a Gable Steveson, how is Cody really going to make an impact in this company? I'm not seeing it, guys. Like last week, I'll give it a 3 out of 10.
How is he going to make an impact in this company? That is a great question, and I think it remains to be seen. I mean, I can imagine Vince, being, I think, quite, I don't know, curious maybe about the new Cody, a refreshing toy. And I can see him, being a face of Raw when you don't have guys all like a Brock Lesnar on all the time. You might have a Cody to kind of lead the charge. But I mean, I think if track record says anything, then I don't know how prolonged that sort of interest may be.
I honestly do not believe that there is this idea that, okay, we've got this guy and now we're just going to use and abuse him. Like, I honestly look at a lot of these acts that we look at, like pick out a Seth Rollins, and people might be critical of how they're using Seth Rollins. They are not trying to punish this guy. Like, this is how they want to push him. So to me, it's more so the question of can they effectively use a Cody? Not so much if they want to or not. I think there will be every effort to maximize someone that they're investing in. The question is, do they have the ability to do so with and make a big star out of Cody in their system?
I think for me, though, the difference between Cody and the Seth Rollins is that Cody has already been in that system, and they've shown, I think, their interest in him was only at a certain level. I mean, it can be perhaps like a Drew McIntyre situation where, yeah, they didn't treat Drew too well before he left, and when he came back, they pushed him to the very top. Is Cody going to get a similar treatment? He doesn't have the size of a Drew McIntyre. So is there something else that he's coming back with that will, catch Vince's eye, that will make him look at him differently? Or will he just, look at him as the same Stardust type of character?
I mean, it's a big investment. So, I mean, it's like the joke's on you if you are looking at this guy as the same version that left 5 years ago.
I mean, yeah.
God knows Raw needs a major star post-Mania.
They had Keith Lee, John. They had Aleister Black. Like, they've had plenty of people who could be stars. But I also know that Vince McMahon only has an interest for certain, he loses interest quick. Well,
it will certainly be probably the most discussed signing of WWE this year is when the end of the year, and we are looking at where Cody's stature is in WWE. But thank you for the feedback tonight, and to all of you for joining us live tonight for Rewind to Raw. We are back on Tuesday. We will have a new Rewind away. Once again, we will be reviewing Super Card of Honor 2017. Have you watched this show yet?
I have, yes.
Wow. All ready, all set to go. Okay. So we will be tackling that. That is, again, exclusively for Post Wrestling Cafe members. And the way it works out this month, we are going to squeeze in 2 Rewind-Aways before the end of March. We'll be back next Tuesday reviewing the WWE Draft of 2016.
Yeah, wow. Okay, traveling even...
Shane and Daniel Bryan on SmackDown, and Mick Foley and Stephanie on Raw.
These draft shows, I think, are always interesting to talk about. So, yeah, we'll get a nice slice of both rosters from 2016 next week.
All right. So that's coming up in the next 2 weeks for patrons. Thanks to everyone for joining us, and we'll speak with you Tuesday, live at 1 Eastern, right here on the channel for the Post Daily News. So that is it for us. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll speak with you on Tuesday.